Okay, today we're looking at section 4.4, slopes of the line. Finding the slope of the line using two of its points, and we're interpreting slope as a rate of change. First thing we have is a couple definitions. First one is the slope. Slope M, that's a number, that's a letter that always represents slope. M of a non-vertical line is the number of units the line rises or falls for each unit of horizontal change from left to right. Now that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to people. People interpret slope differently. Everybody interprets it a little differently. A lot of us that have heard what slope is, they interpret it as rise over run. The rest of us look at rise over run and we don't know what the heck that means either. We actually remember rise over run, but we like I don't know what that is. Another way you can look at it is a visual. Slope is rise. That means it's going up or down. Think of an elevator going up or down over run. How many times it goes to the left or to the right. Now with that visual, it's a whole lot easier for a lot of people if you think about it that way. As it's going up, everybody knows numbers get bigger, so they're positive as they go up. As it's going down, they get smaller. As numbers go to the left on a number line, they're negative. As they go to the right, they're positive. Now, for the last week or so, we've been talking about points, and we always said when you're looking at an ordered pair, X comes before Y. It's alphabetical order. X comes before Y. Notice which one comes first. X comes before Y. Now we're looking at slope, and the number that's on top is the Y value. The rise is the Y value. So slope, another way to look at it, it's the change, that's a symbol for change, of Y over the change of X. So it's a change of Y over the change of X. That's something once people start to understand slope and they start to understand points, they make a mistake with, they put the X on top of the Y. Remember, X always comes first in an ordered pair because it's alphabetical. It's always X comma Y, but when you're talking about slope, Y is on top. It's the rise over the run. It's the change of it going up and down over the change of it going left and right. The definition of a rate of change, it compares two different quantities that are changing. Rate of change and slope, more often than not, can be used interchangeably, and we'll look at that. First thing we have is finding slope. The slope M of the non-vertical line passing through the points, and you read this, everybody, you don't read this as x1, y1. You read this as x sub 1. Notice it's below it, so it's a sub number. X sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2 is M equals the rise over the run. That's what we wrote a second ago. It's the change in y over the change in x. Now, if you think about it being the change in something, the formula is easy to remember. If you think of yourself, how you changed from the age you are now to the age you were 3 years ago, you would take whatever your age is now and you would subtract the number 3 because you're looking at how things are different. Difference means to subtract. So take one of your y values and subtract the other one from it. Now notice I said one of your y values. I didn't say that to confuse you. Look at your formula. It says y sub 2 minus y sub 1. And it says x sub 2 minus x sub 1. If you make a mistake and you label those points incorrectly, your problem will still come out correctly if you go the same direction both times. What I mean by that is this formula can be rewritten this way. Y sub 1 minus y sub 2 over x sub 1 minus x sub 2. That would be acceptable as well. That would be the slope, acceptable as well. What you can't do, where the no-no comes in, is if you go one direction and you do something like this, y sub 1 minus y sub 2, if you go the wrong direction and say x sub 2 minus x sub 1, and we'll look at what that means in a second ago. These numbers have to be the same on top of each other, the sub numbers. They're not. See, right here they are. They're both 1s and they're both 2s, so it's okay. Just like right here, they're both 2s and they're both 1s, so it's okay. Here's classifying a couple lines by slope. The first one is a line with a positive slope rises from left to right. If it's positive, that means you're going up a ramp. Think about a little man coming along the road and he's going up the ramp to get where he's going. That's positive because he's going up. If it is a line with a negative slope, it falls from left to right. That same little man is coming, and then he goes down that slope. He goes down that ramp. So if you're going up a ramp, it's positive. Down a ramp, it is a negative slope. Now, that's usually pretty easy for everybody to remember. Where it gets a little tougher is when you're talking about zero and undefined. A line with a zero slope shows change from one point to the next point. Now, if you take a look at this point, would be easy. Let's call that point 0, 1 right there. Let's just say it went up 1 unit, 0, 1. And let's call this point right next to it. Let's call that point 1, 1. We just went over one time, and we went up one time from the origin. Okay, if you look at the rate of change, m equals your change of y, so y sub 2 minus y sub 1, over your change of x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Now, if you look at the change of that, what the best thing to do is to take those 2 points and label them. You know x comes before y, x comes before y, and we'll just call this point 1 and this point 2. If you call the second one, if you called 1.1, it wouldn't change anything. Just make sure you go the same way both times. So now all you have to do is plug your values in. Y sub 2's value, if you look at it, it's right here, is 1. So 1 minus y sub 1's value is 1. Over x sub 2's value is 1. Minus x sub 1 value is 0. So then you simplify that fraction right there very simply. 1 minus 1 is 0, and 1 minus 0 is 1. So this 0 divided by 1 is 0 as your slope. Another way you can look at it, I'm going to erase this part just for a second. Another way you can look at it is if you have a line going this way as a slope, you can write the word 0 with it. You can write 0. Okay? That's another way for you to remember that it is a 0 slope. An undefined slope, the reason it is undefined is if you take the exact same numbers we used a second ago, and we look at that one and that one, we'll call this one negative 1, 0, and we'll call this one negative 1, 1. You take the exact same things and you go back into the slope formula, the change of y over the change of x. Then you just label your points again. X comes before y, x comes before y, sub 1 and sub 2. Again, if you mess up and you go sub 1, sub 2 the other way, it's not going to change anything. But just plug your values in now. Y sub 2's value is 0, minus y sub 1's value is 1, over x sub 2's value is negative 1, minus x sub 1's value is negative 1. Now, this is a part that'll get people confused. See, I have that minus negative number down there. Remember, anytime you have minus a negative number, it means plus a positive number. So if you simplify this fraction, 0 minus 1 is negative 1, and negative 1 plus 1 is 0. This has negative 1 over 0. In math, this is never acceptable to have a 0 at the bottom of a fraction. That's why it is considered undefined. And that's why it's not a 0 slope. It is considered undefined. Another way, just like you can write the word 0 with a horizontal line, I'm going to erase this. You can take this slope that is vertical and going up and down, and you can write no slope. And a student actually taught me that several years ago. She wrote 0 and she wrote no slope to determine between the two. Example number 1, this is finding slopes, and we just did one like this, so we'll go quickly through these. Negative 2, negative 3, so x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, and then you just plug your values into your slope formula. Here's your slope formula right here. I'll provide the slope formula this test. I'll probably provide it next week's test, but after that, you'll be on your own for the slope formula. Y sub 2 is 2. Minus y sub 1 is negative 3, so you have minus a negative. X sub 2 is 1, minus x sub 1 is negative 2. Again, minus a negative. Anytime you have minus a negative, it means plus a positive. And you can see right below it says 2 plus 3. Minus a negative means plus a positive. 1 plus 2 is right below it. So if you just look down to the next line, 2 plus 3 is 5, and 1 plus 2 is 3. That is a positive slope. That is a positive slope 5 over 3 tells you that from the point you're looking at, you're going to go up 5 units and you're going to go to the right 3 units since they're both positive. It rises from left to right. For B on example 1, you're using -2, -3, and 4, -3. So this is, you're labeling them xy, xy. Remember, it's always x comma y, sub 1, sub 2. That's the easiest way to do slope. Plug in your values. Here's your slope formula again. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1, or the change of y. Y sub 2's value is -3 minus a -3. That's y sub 1 value. X sub 2's value is 4 minus a -2. That's x sub 1's value. Remember, minus a negative means plus a positive, minus a negative plus a positive. -3 plus 3 is 0, and 4 plus 2 would be over 6 if you'd write that out. But 0 divided by anything is 0, and if you have a 0 as a slope, it is horizontal. Remember, thinking about 0 as a slope, you're going to show a line that looks similar to this. It'll be a horizontal line. And then the third part of example number 1, -1, -4, and -1, -2. Okay, for this example C, you have x sub 1 value, y sub 1 value as -1, -4. So remember, it's x, then y, then x, then y, and it's sub 1, sub 2 for each other. That's the best way to do it, is to label all your points. So your slope formula is still the change of y over the change of x. M equals the change of y over the change of x. So y sub 2's value is -2 minus y sub 1's value is -4. Now that's where I see a lot of people making mistakes. You'll forget to put minus a negative because it's the change. It's the change of it, and since things are changing, again, that means to subtract, but it's subtract a negative. Anytime you have minus a negative, it means plus a positive. X sub 2's value is -1 minus x sub 1's value is -1. So minus a negative against plus a positive. -2 plus 4 is +2, and -1 plus 1 is 0. You cannot have 0 at the bottom of a fraction. That is a no-no in math. It will never work in any math class. Therefore, it is undefined, and the line is vertical. You'll have a line that looks similar to this. And I'm not looking at how it's going to look exactly, but it'll be a vertical line in some way, shape, or form. Remember, that means no slope. No slope. The first checkpoint says find the slope of the line passing through the points, then classify the line by its slope. -5, 2, and 4, -1. Easiest way to do it, x comma y, sub 1, sub 2. M equals the change of y over the change of x. Change of y over the change of x. Plug the values in. Change of y is -1 is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 is 2 over x sub 2 is 4 minus x sub 1 is -5. Minus a negative. That's the part that messes people up. Means plus a positive right there. -1 minus 2 means -3 over 4 plus 5 is 9. You can simplify that. The number 3 goes into both of them. 3 times -1 is -3, and 3 times 3 is 9. So your slope for the first one is -1 over 3, and that's where it comes from here. Anytime it is a negative value, it will fall from left to right. It means it's going downhill. It's a slope. It's a ramp going downhill. Same thing with this one. xy, sub 1, sub 2. Your same formula. Y sub 2 is 2 minus y sub 1 is 2 over x sub 2 is 9 minus x sub 1 is 6. 2 minus 2 is 0, and 9 minus 6 is 3. You have 0 divided by something. Your slope is 0. That's okay to have 0 at the bottom. Your slope is 0, and that is a horizontal line. You can see that there. Same thing, easiest way to do it, x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Same thing with this one, x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. I'm going fast because I'm running out of time. My 15-minute limit, everybody. Check your answers versus these. You'll find the exact same thing true. 5 over 3 is your slope for your second one, and it'll rise from left to right. Anytime it's positive, it rises. Anytime it's negative, it falls.